And welcome to Around the Ozarks Spotlight. Each week we uncover the stories behind the people who live and work here in Southwest Missouri. Those individuals with entrepreneurial spirit who work to better the lives of others or even put pen to paper to write books about the stories and the history of the Ozarks and its people. I am your host, Scott Meier. Today we are exploring the world of cancer, which I know a little something about, with the American Cancer Society. I've already got Sherry on here, but unfortunately, Amy Sherry's not joining us. So I'm just going to introduce you. I've got my guest, Amy Ross. Hello, Amy.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And how are you?
I'm doing okay.
Okay, we're gonna let you all know why Amy is here in just a moment. I want to bring her up to speed a little bit on my history with cancer, since that's what we're going to do. Talk about this next half hour. Back in 2009, I found out I had colon cancer, and you don't know until you know, and you have an episode like that, what that means. And the first thing you think of is family, and the second thing you think of is family, and of course, third family as well before you think about work and friends and all that, because it immediately affects you and it scares the living daylights out of you, and then you do all the wrong things like look on online to see what that means and what's going to happen, and that was before I even knew about the American Cancer Society's ability to really set things straight, and I went to that website and it helped me a great deal. Now, Amy Ross, Amy, why don't you tell the folks who you are and then we can get into why you're here. So, who's Amy Ross?
So, I am a school administrator actually when I'm not here with my husband, but right now we are fighting cancer together since September. He was perfectly healthy, diagnosed with
Mm-hmm.
September non Hodgkin's lymphoma. Went to the doctor for a random health check because he had some swollen lymph nodes. And within 2 weeks, we found out he was stage 4 with non Hodgkin's marginal zone lymphoma. And then, like I said, it will be a year this September, and in that year, everything in our life has completely changed. So, I'm work. I'm a school administrator. I'm a wife. We've been married for 30 years this year. We have two
Mm-hmm.
kids, and we have 5 grandkids. And cancer has really rocked our world in the last year to go from nothing or not even knowing to completely being stage 4 and undergoing multiple transplants and blood transfusions and therapies, just trying to get it back under control.
That's crazy. And what is your husband's name?
My husband's name is John Ross.
John. And how old is John?
So John is 49.
Only 49. I
He's
mean, that's
only 49.
that's I mean, you've been married for 30 years, so
Yeah. High school sweethearts.
it's been a journey. That's right, and hopefully a lot more journey to come. When he wasn't feeling right, why don't you tell the folks a little bit what that was like? Because did he let on to you that he wasn't something was wrong, or did you just notice that maybe something was out of sync?
Sure. I'm trying not to tear up a little bit here.
That's all
He
right. I'm
actually
sorry.
drives a train. He works for the railroad. So he was a conductor. So you don't have a normal schedule anyway. You work 12 hours, you're on 12, off 12 every day of your week. So you're always kind of fighting fatigue anyway.
Hmm.
But he just all of a sudden didn't have the energy he did. He was one of those people who are extremely active as a 49-year-old would be compared to our 25-year-old son and son-in-law who's 29. He actually could play softball with them and stay in step with them. And then just one day he wasn't feeling right. And
Hmm.
then his lymph nodes started to swell up, and it was very noticeable in his neck and under his armpits, in his groin area. Um, it was something that we both found kind of at the same time. And
Hmm.
like I said, within 2 weeks, things quickly changed. And the type of cancer he has, he shouldn't even have till he's 65 and older anyway. So it was kind of one of those things that he has something he shouldn't have.
Sure.
He also has a gene depletion, a TP5317P, which is your cancer fighting gene. So when things hit him, it hit him fast. And what medication they are supposed to use doesn't work for him. And so it's kind of the norm doesn't fit because he doesn't even fit with what type of cancer he should have anyway. Not that anyone should have cancer, it's
Right.
just
Sure.
very rare for someone of his age and of his health to have the type of cancer that he has and to have it at that extent and that stage already that far into it before it was ever diagnosed.
So when he wasn't feeling right and you decided to go to the doctor, were you with him at that time?
I actually was not. I was at school that day. It was a school board meeting day, and I won't forget the
Hmm.
call that I got. He went to a walk-in clinic to get some antibiotics because he thought he had a viral infection. Went to the doctor. What is funny, it was a local clinic in West Plains, Missouri, where we live, Burton Creek Clinic. The doctor who diagnosed him had actually just saw another person with the same type of cancer,
Sure.
non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, with some swollen lymph nodes the week before. And after doing his exam, he sat back in his seat and said, "I think you have cancer until they prove otherwise." And it rocked John's world. He called
Oh,
me immediately, and I couldn't even think of how to comprehend. Like you said, it changes your life. I couldn't
oh,
comprehend how to get from the school to where he was at. Even, you're trying to. That word cancer is a scary word, and
sure.
especially when it's not something you were expecting, and it just kind of rocked our world. But that was the beginning of the journey. By the end of the day, we had already had a CT, and they found the markers, and everything moved very quickly after that.
Amy Ross, my guest today. We're talking about cancer, and there's a reason why, and we're going to talk about how there are some things in place that have helped her through the American Cancer Society. And the reason we're talking about that is we've got the Cattle Barons Ball coming up in Springfield in September, and you'll hear more about that as the weeks go on, because that's a huge event, and the money raised there obviously has great importance for so many people. Now, when he was told about his cancer, you said he didn't have you with him. He called you and told you about it. Um, when you talked that night, I mean, did he give you any indication of uh, the depth and brevity of the whole situation, or was he just in shock?
He was in complete shock. I was able to get to him within 30 minutes of the initial doctor stating that he thought that's what it was. And of course, he was
Hmm.
just a general MD. When we did go over to meet with the CT, they did call us over the phone afterwards with those results. So I was with him for all of that and for the
Okay.
CT that day. When the techs looked at us, they're not supposed to talk to you, but you can tell by the look on their face something's
Yeah.
not right.
Right.
And I'll never forget, the lady said to us, "You guys need to get to St. Louis, get involved with the American Cancer Society, and get to St. Louis to Barnes and Siteman Cancer Center." And that began our journey.
Now, where do you live? Where do you currently live?
I live in West Plains, Missouri, right on the Missouri
Okay.
Arkansas line.
Sure. Now, West Plains, is that where the doctor was? That
That's where the
the
doctor
initial.
was.
Okay. And
Home of the Scissors.
I'm sorry.
We're at the home of the Scissors, the West Plains Scissors.
Right, the scissors. That's right. And but you're in a small town, and you get shocking
Correct.
news like that. I mean, did he point you in the direction of Barnes, or did you feel yourself that's we have to go there right now?
So it was twofold. I actually had a very close friend who was actually going through the battle with her husband at the time, and the
Hmm.
doctor had told John the same thing that she told me. So right away, we knew where we had to go because the doctor told us. The people who called with the results of the CT told us the same thing. And then right away, also, I had this other friend, and I confided in her, and she said, "You have to go. It's the
Sure.
best place there is." And so we loaded up, and we actually ended up going to another doctor for a second opinion before we got in up here, because there is a little bit of a waiting, not much, but a little bit. Within
Hmm.
2 weeks, though, we were up here and seeing an oncologist and a hematologist.
Now, from West Plains to St. Louis, how long a drive is that?
Almost 4 hours with all the road construction on the interstate.
Right. So 4 hours there, 4 hours back. You have a job. You have kids. Are the kids still at home?
No, they're married and they have kids of their own.
That's why you got all the grandkids, right?
That's right.
Okay. So
That's
I mean,
right.
you've got a busy family in and around that area. I'm assuming they all still live in town.
They do. They actually moved back. Our son's a pilot, our daughter's a teacher. And so they moved back when it was time to have their kids. And so all our family is there together. So that support system is there.
So what do you do? How do you get back and forth for these things? Driving 4 hours and 4 hours. I mean, that's got to be really tough.
At first, it was more of a challenge than it had to be because we didn't know about the American Cancer Society and Hope
Mhm.
Lodge. Since then,
Okay.
we've learned about the Hope Lodge, and because at the beginning we were staying I bet we had stayed 50 nights in a hotel, because when you drive 4 and you have treatment that lasts 8 to 12 hours, and then you have to drive 4 hours home, you can't do that. He physically just couldn't
No.
do that. So we would stay in a hotel many, many times. After that, we learned about the Hope Lodge, and we've been put in the right contact where that's a support system for families. And so our oncologist, after going, we have a whole team. And that's also what's amazing about this American Cancer Society, Lymphoma Leukemia Association. Everyone works together, including the doctors and the team, to ensure that we had what we needed to help him during his CAR T cell transplant. Now he's in a stem cell transplant. I'm actually in the hospital as we speak. He's up here having a stem cell transplant. And so we stay at the Hope Lodge before the transplant, and we'll be moving there because you have to be within 30 minutes of your oncologist for a minimum of 45 to 100 days. That's very hard when you live 4 hours away.
Really? Now, let's talk about that a little bit. Not aware of that. Tell us about that again.
So he has blood tests every other day because when you have a transplant, you take anti-rejection drugs for the rest of your life, or sometimes it's up to a year. It just really depends on the type of transplant you have.
Sure.
When he had the CAR T cell transplant, his cancer changed and mutated from a slow-growing cancer to a fast-growing cancer, went from 5% in his bone marrow to 95% in his bone marrow in 30 days. So things quickly changed and evolved. And then from there, we learned that as soon as we were released from our 21-day minimum hospital stay, your blood levels have to be at a certain point before you're healthy enough to leave. The same thing is happening with the stem cells. We're here for a minimum of 21 days, and then we have to stay within 45 to 100 days within 30 minutes from the hospital.
Sure.
Well, again, we live 4 hours away. So like I said, he either has treatment every other day or a doctor's appointment or labs drawn. And so if it wasn't for the Hope Lodge, I don't know how we would do it because we had already been in the hospital. We'd already stayed over 90 days in hotels. But now that we're involved with the Hope Lodge, we have a place where we can stay and be there together and go back and forth. They even shuttle back and forth to the hospital. So you are allowed to do that and take the burden and the worry off of you. There's fully set up kitchens so we can cook instead of eating out because I don't know if you know this, but you get really tired of eating out and it's hard to find healthy meals.
I totally agree with that. Absolutely.
Even just doing laundry, I'm able to wash his clothes there. And so all of those things come with where we're able to stay.
Right. How's his demeanor?
It's okay. He's a positive person. I'm the happy one. And you know how you level your spouse out. So, you're night and day. But I mean, he's in pain. I mean, cancer doesn't feel good. He's stayed up, we've tried to stay positive. We're very faith-based people. And so we've tried to stay positive. But when you're hurting and you just don't have any energy, it takes everything out of you. And so when he can't live the same life he could before the diagnosis, that kind of took from him a lot mentally than he has been able to bear lately. So it's been a tough road, but he's hanging in there. He feels pretty good. We try to walk every day and right now he has 0.1 white blood cells. So we have to be very careful because he doesn't have any immune system.
Right. Oh gosh. And that's, the good news is it's summertime. We get into fall and winter. It's going to be a little tougher. My guest, Amy Ross, she's been good enough to share her story, her cancer story with us, and the story of hope that helps with Hope Lodge in terms of being able to defray some of the costs of treatment, which incurs costs far above just what the doctors asked for. You've got food and a place to stay, and as you say, to wash your clothes. We're going to find out more here in just a little bit. As you're listening to Around the Ozarks Spotlight, we'll be back in a moment with Amy Ross and the rest of her story and to learn a little bit more about Hope Lodge. I'm Scott Meier, and you're listening to Around the Ozarks Spotlight. Back in just a minute.
Hey, everybody, it's Ethan and Sarah Forhetz from your favorite podcast, Around the Ozarks in 5. I'm sure you've been wondering, how can I get even more amazing stories, events, and witty banter to start my day?
Well, look no further. Here we are. Sign up for our daily newsletter. You'll have what's going on around the Ozarks right at your fingertips each weekday morning.
Yeah, just go to aroundtheozarks.com, click on the newsletter tab to sign up.
Thanks for listening to Around the Ozarks in 5. We hope to see you in your inbox soon.
Welcome back to the second half of today's Around the Ozarks Spotlight. Happy to introduce all of you to Amy Ross. Amy, a young woman of strength, I've got to say, as her husband is battling cancer. And we're talking about cancer today on Spotlight because we're throwing the spotlight on the Cattle Barons Ball, which is coming up soon in Southwest Missouri, to help raise money to fight cancer through the American Cancer Society of Southwest Missouri. Most of the dollars stay right there, and they go to help all the folks in this side of the state anyway, as they battle the good fight, if you will, against cancer, and hopefully people go into remission and it's all good. Amy's husband is suffering from, and Amy, I can certainly tell folks what it is, if you don't mind, if you tell us again, because it's a mouthful and you obviously know exactly what's going on.
Sure. So he has non-Hodgkin's marginal zone lymphoma, small B cell, but it's mutated into his bone marrow, his lymph nodes, his organs. And so his quickly spread to where it's not concentrated anymore in just the lymph nodes. It's now as blood cancer as well. And so that kind of affects every part of your body.
Sure. Now, did he make the mistake I made initially by going to the internet and looking a thing up and seeing just what the heck's going on?
He sure did, but that was more my problem because being an educator, I like to learn about things, which was really a bad thing to do.
Yes, it was.
Especially when you look at things
Yes.
you shouldn't. And so, like I said, having that information from the American Cancer Society, like you said, and the Lymphoma Leukemia Association, they send us directly. So that gave us just the facts. And then, of course, using the resources that our doctors were able to provide to us, his different oncologists and hematologists, radiologists, all of them gave us information that was fact-based, but it also provided resources for families. And the Hope Lodge has a plethora of all of that available as well, depending on the type of cancer that patient is facing.
Does Hope Lodge, it makes itself available to all residents of Missouri, or does it go beyond that?
I believe it goes beyond that, but of course, don't hold me to that. Of course, we're fairly new to the Hope Lodge, and so we were blown away just to see the support that provided. I know that there are several in the United States when I looked it up online, and then we began to stay. And of course, you can donate to the Hope Lodge. I didn't realize they had places that you could donate financially.
Sure.
People sponsor rooms, different things like that. But what I found to be the most comforting about it is living in a hospital. Like right now, my bed is right beside his at the hospital when they're in that critical state. And they keep you isolated away from people to keep your immune system as healthy as possible. When you get over there, nobody has to be alone. The Hope Lodge provides for that, because I can't imagine the challenges the Hope Lodge without that people would face, because first of all, it's expensive. It's expensive to travel. It's expensive to stay in hotels. It's expensive to do any of that. And to have a place where you and a caregiver can stay in one room, that's the way it's set up. They have a room where a patient and a caregiver, whether that be your spouse or a loved one of some sort, can share a room. And you have a private restroom. That way, if you're sick, most cancer patients, as you know, are immune compromised. And so you need a place where you can be, if you're having chemotherapy, anything like that. So you have a private bathroom, a private like little living quarters, and 2 single beds, and then a shared kitchen down below and laundry room where everyone can go and use the resources they have. So nobody has to be alone during their cancer journey. It provides a place for everybody to be together during that. And I can't imagine not having that, especially at this point, because everything you do, the money adds up. Of course, medical bills, as people know, we have good insurance.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And so that just takes one burden off of the families to be able to not have to take that into consideration, because we can focus on him getting better and getting well, and me taking care of just him and having to worry about, first of all, does the hotel have another room? Where can we stay there? What do we have to do with that? So that just takes a whole level out of that. So you don't have to face cancer alone as a family. because that's the sad part about this, is seeing those that I have ran into that are alone during this journey. We've met so many wonderful couples, but I've also met so many people who just don't have anybody else. And what's funny is cancer draws people together. It becomes a support system and family of its own. So we have several people that text us or call. I had a little lady call me yesterday who's up here for the same thing. And so everyone needs somebody. And I think the Hope Lodge allows for that. It allows for people to have a place to go, and you have that commonality together.
How are the boys holding up?
So the grandkids call. They're actually, my daughter called yesterday. She had open house at school, and she wanted to know if all 5 grandkids, her and my son's kids, could stay the night at our house. They're having a sleepover at Nana and Pa's without us there tomorrow night, and they're going to FaceTime us because the kids have been begging. It's hard for them to understand. It's hard enough for us to understand, but they range from age 9 to 4 months. And so, our kids are having to be strong. They have kids of their own, but they're little. And so hearing that the first time we were out to eat and somebody said, "I'm sorry, John, I heard you have cancer." Well, the 9-year-old's old enough to kind of know a little bit about that. And so that conversation had to happen that we weren't quite ready for, but, the kids know. The older ones, especially, if it's been a journey and a battle for them as well, but we've tried to keep normalcy. So they're going to have a sleepover at our house either Friday night or Saturday night and FaceTime us so we feel like we're there with them.
Sure. Well, you had mentioned spirituality in your family, and I think there's something to be said about the power of prayer, and with the kids knowing and your family knowing, and even John being able to join in that, it just gives you more strength. I can't tell you enough how important it was to have people around that went out of their way to do as much as they can do, because there isn't much people can do around you other than try to keep you positive. The good fight still comes from inside. I think a lot of it does, and
completely,
that positivity can make such a difference, because again, the weight of the world is not only on your shoulders, but it's on his. And I'm sure he's thinking about all kinds of stuff that maybe he hasn't even shared with you, because it's just so personal. It's so personal.
Yeah, it's very personal. And we have, like I said, I have an amazing school system, but we have an amazing church support system as well. And so we're on every prayer list. And of course, it's not just that, it's our community, our entire community, whether it's the same faith as us or not. When you've grown up there, that whole community of West Plains is our family. And so their church systems have written letters, and without that, we wouldn't be able to get through what we're going through. So yes, faith is a big part of staying focused and knowing that everything's going to be okay and that somebody else holds our hand. So
now, are John's parents still alive as well?
They are.
They are. So this has got to be tough for them too, because that's their son.
Yes. Yeah. His mom lives in Texas and his dad in Kansas City. And so actually his stem cells came from his brother because his were not healthy enough to harvest from himself. And he ended up, they went to the donor registry, ended up being able to get those from his brother, which was a match. So that was a blessing of its own. Because that can be hard. Like the type of cancer he has, he shouldn't even get stem cells from another person anyway. It's not something you normally do, but we're thinking outside the box at this point, trying to put it in remission. And so his brother actually was his stem cell donor this time, which I'll also mention. The Hope Lodge allowed him to stay and his mom to stay during the pre-process of that, because you have to prep for a few days. And so he wasn't in the hospital, but he had to be up here for a week for those cells to be extracted from him. And so the prepping of trying to build those, and the Hope Lodge allowed for that as well. And so his mom and brother were allowed to stay there for that first week while we were in the hospital, so he could be here, be close enough to the doctors, and they could harvest the stem cells before they gave the transplant to John.
Now, when they have the Cattle Barons ball in here in Springfield, and it's a big event every year. One of the things they do is called the paddle, where people hold up paddles, and it's like an auction, like a financial auction, to help raise money. That money goes to Hope Lodge. So I think last year they raised over $55,000. So it's
Wow.
the good news is there are things you can do in and around Springfield to assist people like Amy and her family with I guess it sounds like the grown-up version of Ronald McDonald House for kids, because it does a lot of the same things, only in this case for adults. And it's not just at Barnes. You said these are around the country as well. So
That's right.
worthwhile for anybody that is even contemplating a situation where they might have to take a loved one there, because I don't believe there's a Hope Lodge. I'm not aware of one here in Springfield, but that must be the closest one.
I believe so.
Yeah. So having the team that you have, it sounds like you've got a great oncologist and multiple surgeons at this point.
He has actually he has less surgeons. He has a couple surgeons, but he has like 5 or 6 oncologists and a hematologist. And so they staff every day at 10 o'clock on him. It's an amazing. The team is phenomenal. They come. We even had a lesson by one of the oncologists last night explaining to us exactly the process. So over here, there's a whiteboard and they're explaining to you how the cells split. And because, you want to know, you're trying to figure out if it's going to work, if it's not. But yes, it's a learning hospital. And so it's great to have that, because you can ask questions and they're going to go out of their way to make sure that they teach, and they also provide you the support you need for that as well.
No, that's amazing. And having a team, like you said, there's so many questions you have, and not that they can always answer every question, because some of the stuff is still, they're still trying to figure it out themselves. But
Right.
You've got the best minds in the center of the country, and maybe in the center of the universe, for all we know, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly
and
right.
the other part that you talked about, and anybody that's been down this road or hasn't been down this road, great insurance is one thing, but there's still, for many of us, 80-20 or 85-15 or whatever it is, that 15 can be considerable. I know my surgery was very, very expensive, and your life is worth it, but it took us years to pay that off, the part that we owed. And to this day, I'll take it to my grave, my surgeon was the most amazing person I've ever met. And he did wonderful things for me. And I've been in remission for 15 years. So knock on wood. Thank you. And I feel incredibly blessed. You can't imagine. Because I've had so many friends that have had similar cancers to mine that haven't, quite frankly, had the success that I did. So I don't know why. Good Lord had other plans. I have no idea what, but you just don't know. We're almost out of time. This has been a year in process. Any thoughts for anybody out there that might be finding out the same thing as your husband at this point, of what you would suggest they do? Maybe a little checklist of what a spouse might want to do first before they jump on the internet and start looking at stuff?
Don't jump on the internet. Go to only and if you do, you have to stay at reputable sites. And so sticking with the American Cancer Society, and they are specific to the disability and the type of disease that they have. And so make sure you do that. People keep telling me to take care of myself, but when you're trying to balance, working, which, like I said, a family, all of that together, you're still a parent, you're still a grandparent. Just remember to take it a day at a time, because at the beginning, it was hard to do that. And every day there's good days and bad days. And we know with his type of cancer, it's not curable, but it's treatable. But that's something that's hard to swallow at first. And so even if you put it in remission for a day, that's a day longer than you had. And so you just need to remember that a day at a time, because anything can change. Science is changing every day. The more that they can do, and like I said, keep your faith. Make sure that you just take it a day at a time. Love each other as much as you can, and find a great team. You go to those support systems. Use the resources, because at first we didn't use the social worker to help us get us to the Hope Lodge. We didn't use the resources that they provided because we thought we could do it ourselves. You can't. It's too big. You have to rely on your family. You have to rely on your friends. You have to rely on your church family. You have to rely on those resources, such as the American Cancer Society, the Hope Lodge, your oncologist, anything they suggest. Just make sure you take advantage of that and take your pride out of it, because at some point, that's not what it's about. you're trying to make sure that you have one more day, and that the moments of healing happen. In order to do that, you're going to just take it a day at a time.
Amy Ross, I want to thank you for being a great guest today. God bless you and your husband, John, for being a guest here on Around the Ozarks Spotlight. And also my producers, Taylor Dempster and Jay Stevens, as well as all of you for joining us today. If you happen to miss all or part of this program, you can find it at ATO Spotlight on the AroundTheOzarks.com website, Facebook, Instagram, on X, or even our new app for ATO, which can be found in the Apple App Store or Android apps. I'm Scott Meier. Remember, every day is a gift. Enjoy it. We'll talk soon. You bet. Thank you, Amy.